What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bring Me Joy-Con. So today we need to talk about the rumor that GBA games, or Game Boy Advance games, are coming to the Nintendo Switch. That, of course, I'm sure everybody would be hyped for. So just recently, Nintendo filed a couple of patents. One of them was the new Paper Mario, which is already confirmed for the Switch. And another one was Game Boy Advance. So a lot of people thought N64 would be coming next, but with some of those titles that are on the N64 being how big and popular they are, they might be a little while, or maybe they're trying to work out licensing issues with certain companies that own certain games, or maybe they'll just re-release some of those as Switch titles. Also, like, Game Boy Advance was essentially like a 16-bit system, sort of like the Super Nintendo was. And that's why you saw so many of those Super Nintendo games get re-released on the Game Boy Advance. There is a ton of them. Super Nintendo being one of my favorite consoles, I would be excited to get some of those Game Boy Advance games on the Switch. I think they probably won't do Game Boy and Game Boy Color just because it's very dated, and if you saw what they did, I mean, everybody saw what they did with Link's Awakening. You can squeeze $50 out of a full-on remake, and I don't think anybody really wants to play Game Boy on their Switch with the black and white screen, and I mean, they wouldn't do it that weird green terrible color, so they'd probably go with the black and white, and it just, I feel like there's just not enough really great games there. They could do like 10 or 15. Some people would play them, some people would feel like it's too dated. So I really think that if they're going to remake, or if any original Game Boy is going to come to the Switch, they're probably going to be remakes. I would really hope that they do that with those, like maybe do like Mario Land. Mario Land 1, 2, and 3 were all very good games. All 3 of the Zelda games for the Game Boy Color, amazing. There's just, outside of that, there's really not that many. There's a few great games outside of those, but there's not that many. And Game Boy Advance just makes more sense. So, I think it would be logical, especially if they're going to do it coming up here, like, right before Christmas, like September-ish. I know the NES games came out like September, and then a year later, Super Nintendo. Obviously, they're going to launch something for the online like that. Very likely 1 year from the last one, like they did the year before. So, it would just make sense to do the Game Boy Advance. I would love N64, but let's face it, they own some of the really great N64 games, but a lot of those games are tied up in licensing issues. GoldenEye being a big one that nobody could ever re-release. Microsoft almost did for the 360. They had like a demo of it that some hackers found on the PartnerNet program thing, but I think Modern Vintage Gamer has a video about that, but then it just never released because GoldenEye is so tied up in crazy licensing things. There's like 4 or 5 different companies that own the rights to that. And same thing with, the other really great N64 games are owned by Rare, or at least partly owned by Rare in collaboration with possibly Nintendo, but I don't even know that for sure. But both Banjo-Kazooie's, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Diddy Kong Racing, everything in Diddy Kong Racing was Rare except for Diddy Kong himself. So then you're stuck with Ocarina of Time and DK64. I believe Nintendo fully owns the rights to that. They just paid Rare to make it. So, but there's not, Mario Kart 64, but you've already got a great Mario Kart game on the Switch. So, I feel like Nintendo doesn't own enough of the licenses for the N64 titles to really want to put out a whole app full of N64 games, because they're not going to have that many. So anyway, let me know, do you think these rumors about the Game Boy Advance coming to the Switch are true? That, to me, makes the most sense. It's just logically what they have to work with, and they're probably going to do it, I would bet, in September. So, yeah, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't yet. See you in the next video.